Mere Christianity 1952 is one of the most well-known and important Christian apologetics ever published. It compiles C.S. Lewis' iconic World War II radio broadcasts into a series of timeless reflections intended to explain and defend Christianity. Mere Christianity presents Lewis' arguments for the reality of Christian doctrine. It also looks at what Christian living entails and why Lewis believes we're all better off as Christians. C.S. Lewis was an English literature tutor at Oxford University who rose to prominence as one of Britain's most popular and influential intellectuals by the mid-20th century. He was a prolific writer, having written more than 30 works in both fiction and non-fiction. He is most known for his popular children's series The Chronicles of Narnia, which are fictional stories of Christian allegory that have sold over 100 million copies worldwide and been adapted into multiple blockbuster films. Renew your belief in God and morals. Britain was at war when C.S. Lewis originally broadcast these remarks to the British audience on radio in 1942. It was an unsettled period in the nation's history. For more than 2 years, the country had faced the danger of invasion. And British citizens had recently seen the horrors of the Blitz. Lewis delivered these broadcasts on faith and morality during a time when public morale was at an all-time low. In the middle of so much chaos and sorrow, hearing a voice speak about the value of basic decency and loving one's enemies may have seemed weird. But that was the point. They were a beacon of light to a community in desperate need of spiritual renewal. The concepts contained in these book summary helped a nation maintain its faith and optimism during the most difficult of times. They can also benefit you as it is with us. We may not be at war now, but the effects of war on the human spirit, such as hopelessness, despair, and apathy, are more prevalent than ever. Yes, this summary is about Christianity, but is also represent restoring our moral sense. Whether you're a believer or a non-believer, these timeless insights on morality and faith provide a welcome respite from the relentless skepticism and nihilism that define our day. This book is summarized into its 9 main ideas. 1. All humans possess an innate understanding of the universal moral code. This intuitive knowledge is evident in our quarreling, which is a common human activity. When conflicting, the offended party often appeals to moral principles like fairness or honesty, expecting their opponent to follow the same principles. In practice, conflicting parties rarely disagree about moral principles, and even when someone breaks the standards of decent behavior, they still feel wrong intuitively. This intuitive aspect of morality is called the law of nature, a universal standard of good and decent behavior felt by all humans. While morality is not an arbitrary human invention, it is essential to consider morality as a law because all humans have felt the same moral impulses at all times. 2. Moral ideals remain relatively stable across time and civilizations. The author discusses the concept of a universal moral law, which some argue is not universally understood. Cultural relativists argue that we learn rules about right and wrong from our society, with different societies having different rules based on their customs and culture. They argue that moral values are largely consistent across different times and cultures, and that teaching children standards of decent behavior does not mean they are arbitrary. They also argue that history often shows different moral systems, but this is not evidence of different values. Despite these objections, history and anthropology provide more evidence for the existence of a moral law than to undermine it. 3. The existence of moral law provides support for theism. We've seen evidence for the existence of a natural moral code. So, what and why does this matter? Well, it matters since this contradicts a solely materialistic account of the universe. Fundamentally, there are only 2 approaches to understanding the universe. The materialist view holds that the universe is the result of random collisions between bits of matter over a long time. The spiritual vision stands in contrast to this viewpoint. According to this viewpoint, the cosmos was guided by some underlying intent or design rather than being the result of chance. So, which one is it? First and foremost, science cannot provide a solution to this question. That isn't to suggest that the scientific approach is incorrect or faulty. It's just that science isn't suited to address basic why questions. In other words, science is excellent at seeing and explaining how the cosmos behaves, but it cannot explain why the universe behaves the way it does. If we ever gain a sense of why, it won't be through science. But by what means? Or will we be perpetually ignorant? Well, there is another method. Introspection allows us to understand what drives our behavior, and we discover that we are compelled by a tremendous, universal force, the moral rule. We may sense the law working on us and influencing how we behave. We know this isn't a physical law because it doesn't govern human conduct. We also know that it is solely concerned with how humans treat one another, and that they do so nicely. Can the cold, arbitrary universe of the materialist worldview explain for this? It's difficult to imagine how this kind of cosmos could care about humans. The presence of the moral rule is significantly more compatible with the concept of a mind or consciousness governing the cosmos. Furthermore, one that appears to care about us. If moral law does not prove the presence of a moral being, it strongly suggests it. While this does not necessarily prove the presence of the Christian God, it does demonstrate that science cannot explain certain facts about the universe, whereas Christianity can. The main takeaway here is that the existence of moral law is proof for theism. 4. Of all the logical possibilities, the most likely is that Jesus truly was and is God. In the New Testament, Jesus claims to be divine, which is central to Lewis' trilemma. The main point here is that of all the logical options, the most likely one is that Jesus was and is God. Now, logically, we can only interpret Jesus' claim in one of three ways. Either he was telling the truth and was, and is, divine, he was consciously lying to his followers, fully aware that he was only a man, or he genuinely believed himself to be divine but wasn't, making him utterly delusional. Here are the three prongs of the trilemma. It's a trilemma because each prong makes swallowing harder. You might think it's easier to believe that Jesus was just a man rather than divine, but even then, you'd have to admit that he symbolizes a level of villainy or delusion that is as uncommon among humans. Some people think there is another possibility. They admit that, while Jesus was probably not divine, he was nonetheless a magnificent moral teacher who deserves to be venerated. This is an undesirable choice for the author C.S. Lewis since, if Jesus was not divine, he would have been either a horrific liar or crazy, neither of which are ethically admirable. So, what should we believe? The first of the three choices is that Jesus was divine, because this is the most likely conclusion based on what we know about Jesus' life, character, and teachings. He lived a very modest life, which contradicts the concept that he was deliberately exploiting people for personal benefit. He also emphasized the need of humility and honesty. Only an extremely arrogant and prideful individual could pretend to be divine when he clearly wasn't. Regarding the idea that he was deluded, Jesus had remarkable insight and intelligence in all other aspects of his life. There is no evidence that he was not in the correct frame of mind. Is it really possible that he was deluded in simply this one area? The most likely explanation is that Jesus truly was divine. 5. Human free will is the root source of all evil in the world. In this flash, we'll address a common objection to Christianity, the problem of evil. The objection typically goes something like this. If there is a kind and all-powerful God, he would have the ability and desire to eliminate suffering from the world. However, in answer to this argument, the author gives an argument that seeks to reconcile the existence of a righteous God with that of evil. But first, we need to understand the link between good and evil. The fundamental point here is that human free will is the root cause of evil in the world. We all believe that good is better than evil. But why? The principles of good and evil demonstrate that good is superior. Goodness is primary and self-sufficient, while evil is always secondary and dependent on the good. In more concrete terms, this indicates that while it is possible to do good things for the sake of doing good, it is impossible to do evil things for the sake of doing bad. Bad actions are always done with the intention of doing good. Whether we indulge in a good item to excess or pursue a good thing through unethical means, badness always includes corrupting something good. So evil is inferior to good because it is always a corrupted version of a more pure good. This is essentially the Christian view of good and evil. It is no accident that the devil is a fallen angel. In Christianity, evil is defined as good that has become perverted. So, finally, we can address the initial issue. How can a just God permit evil in the world? The answer is that when God created the world, it was completely good. However, the world has become tainted as a result of human free choice. You may be questioning why God gave us free will if we were going to abuse it. And why isn't He intervening? If humans did not have the true freedom to conduct immorally, they would never be able to behave morally. 6. Christian morality is focused on inward character and intention. Many people envision God as a Grinch-like person who disapproves of people having fun. That's why He came up with all those stringent rules that are designed to limit our enjoyment and satisfaction. This is a poor misunderstanding of Christian ethics. It is founded on the mistaken belief that morality is primarily about following rules. To demonstrate why morality cannot be limited to obeying laws, consider a man whose behavior is widely regarded as admirable, but who only acts morally in order to enter heaven. On the surface, this man is incredibly nice and amiable to everyone he encounters. He volunteers his time for charitable organizations and even donates a large sum of money to the poor. However, he doesn't care about the individuals he is assisting, and despises giving money away. Is it possible that this man is missing something important? He lacks the right moral character. He is doing good things, but for the wrong reasons. So, what does all this mean? The essential takeaway here is that Christian morality is concerned with interior character and intention. As this case demonstrates, there is a significant gap between outward moral action and internal moral character. Clearly, authentic morality entails being moral as well as acting morally. That is why it is incorrect to believe that Christianity's morality is solely defined by its laws and mandates. These laws and demands are just intended to serve as a framework, guiding us in the right direction, but they become obsolete once we've assimilated them into our personality. This, then, is the fundamental objective of Christian morality, the dramatic transformation of our own being. Self-improvement is therefore essential in Christianity. It is about enhancing the intrinsic self, or soul, by instilling it with love and righteousness. Morality should not be viewed as solely restrictive or limiting, because it ultimately helps us evolve into more mature, fulfilled individuals. Most significantly, being moral makes you feel incredibly good. 7. Christians worship Christ because He is the embodiment of human virtue here on earth. Humans can lead two completely different lives. One, based on material things, which is concerned with the longing for earthly things. This is the natural mode of existence for humans. It is intrinsically selfish, focused solely on personal gain and survival. The other style of life is spiritual, which involves the pursuit of moral principles. Ironically, the items of our earthly wants, like as sex, money, and power, are transient goods that leave our grasp as quickly as they arrive. Values, while spiritual in origin, are steadfast and eternal, making them more likely to give long-term satisfaction. The fundamental idea here is that Christians revere Christ because He is the embodiment of human virtue on earth. The Christian journey begins when we realize how far our unsatisfactory, material existence is from the delight of authentically moral living. Christianity, therefore, begins with a strong sense of dismay rather than comfort. It starts with the sickening understanding that we are living incorrectly. However, it does not have to be this way. Living the Christian life allows us to transcend the inherent selfishness of our material existence and acquire a higher manner of being. The longer we journey along the Christian path, the more we separate from the other creatures and become more like God. But, come on, how can someone resemble God? He's perfect, and so unlike humans. This is why Christians love and venerate Christ. He represents the ideal combination of human and divine attributes. In truth, Jesus came to earth to show humanity how to live a really moral life. Christians venerate Jesus because he is the perfect example of virtue. In life, Jesus exemplified the cardinal qualities of wisdom, temperance, justice, and fortitude. And, even in death, Jesus demonstrated what perfect atonement looks like. The only way to become a Christian is to love and worship Christ. But that's because adoring Christ and striving to live the best ethical life possible are inextricably linked. Only by imitating Christ can we transcend our earthly lives and approach divine goodness. 8. Virtue allows us to transcend our earthly existence and acquire spiritual perfection. So we've seen how following Christ's example and living more virtuously might benefit our souls. But, how does leading a more moral life benefit the soul? Or, put another way, why are Christian values beneficial to us? Let's look at the three main virtues of Christianity: hope, faith, and charity. First, let's look at hope. For a Christian, hope means looking forward to the eternal joy that awaits us beyond the trials of this life. Many non-believers now argue that Christian hope is nothing more than escapism and denial of the present world in favor of the future. They argue that the idea of salvation in another world is a form of wishful thinking that keeps us from enjoying the life we presently have. But this is naive. In fact, those who have hope and look forward to the future are the ones that live their lives with the most zeal and the least amount of stress. These are people who don't allow life's difficulties get the best of them because they know that no matter how great their problems or challenges are, they will eventually give way to better things. Now we get to the second theological virtue, faith. Faith refers to our ability to overcome doubt and maintain our confidence in Christ. Faith is the evidence of things unseen. But, obviously, blind faith is not a virtue, is it? Well, the idea that faith is blind is a myth. Non-believers portray faith as the diametric opposite of reason, and then accuse anything believed by faith as being irrational. However, religion is not the polar opponent of reason, rather, it serves as a supplement. Faith provides the strength to stick to convictions that we have already arrived at through reason. Without faith, none of our beliefs would be able to withstand the ups and downs of our emotions and situations. This is why people who lack faith frequently experience doubt and have weak convictions. Finally, we come at charity, which is all about respecting and helping others in need. Charity can be a difficult virtue because it asks us to be courteous and loving toward those we don't particularly like. However, there is a hidden benefit to charity. If you consistently act as if you love someone, you will eventually fall in love with them for real. This reality is too important to overstate. Charity fills our souls with true feelings of love and compassion. 9. Christianity is an evolutionary step forward in the history of humanity. According to natural selection theory, desirable physiological features that originate in organisms by chance end up being passed down from generation to generation because they help the organism survive and generate offspring. This time, however, we are discussing a spiritual attribute rather than a physiological one. To use an analogy, just as our ancestors' cells grew to be sensitive to light, allowing them to view the physical domain, the spirit in us has evolved to be sensitive to God's light, allowing us to sense the spiritual realm, specifically, the moral rule. Remember that moral law is fundamentally a set of best practices for human harmony. This explains why the Christian religion, which respects the moral rule, has been so successful in spreading throughout the world. The Christian religion's beliefs are extremely practical for the individuals and communities who practice them, allowing them to survive and thrive. For example, Christianity promotes unconditional support among community members, even if such support is not individually lucrative. This is essentially a spiritual version of the concept of survival of the fittest. Individuals and communities who accept these values are better equipped to face life's problems. In summary, believing in Christian teaching is not only totally rational, but it is also beneficial to both you and society. Skeptics today criticize Christianity as illogical and anti-scientific. But this is a serious deception. Christianity is in no way in competition with the scientific project. It simply fills in the blanks where science has been unable to supply solutions. Christianity lays out the blueprint for the most rational way of life, one that is best for our souls and the community. One actionable step here is to find your community. If you're a non-believer taking your initial steps into the Christian world, keep in mind that no matter where you live, there are likely already established Christian groups nearby. Look one up and consider attending a service or study group. Finding your community is the most critical step you can take to explore your growing faith. If you're already a believer, apply the same counsel to a charitable organization. As we've seen, spreading goodwill around the world is the best method to enhance both the planet and yourself. Thanks for joining me today. If you resonate with this content, please share some love, hit that like button and share this with others so together, we spread what is beneficial. If you have some feedback or that you'd like to add to this narrative, feel free to write them at the comments below. See you in our next book summary review and insight sharing.